Well, everybody, this is Don with the vlog of many things, and welcome to our show. And tonight I have with me
Tom?
10 car fending off a very frisky cat.
And
Stephen Lake.
Gentlemen, how you doing?
Doing good.
All right, tonight we're going to get into a little bit of a discussion about Dave Arneson, his legacy, and some perception that his legacy's been kind of ignored, or it's been, how should I put it, guys, insulted, if you will, a mark marked against him. And we're also going to talk about orcs in D&D. And why are we talking about orcs? Because evidently the new monster. First of all, let's just add, which shall we start with tonight? Shall it be orcs, or shall we start with Dave Arneson? What shall be the palate cleanser tonight?
Orcs.
Okay. Steve Lake wants to talk about orcs. Sure, you got to go with the hardcore. Steve goes right for the steak. Screw the potatoes and peas. All right. So, from what I understand, Cal, how you been doing? And this is just from what I have gotten from all this is evidently the new monster manual, orcs are not a monster class or a monster race anymore in the manual. Instead, what Wizards of the Coast has done is they've played them as a playable race, I believe.
Yeah, they're no longer evil. They're just misunderstood.
Okay, basically, you can play orcs, and orcs are considered sentient. And I think WotC is kind of going towards this. Well, if it's sentient and it can think for itself, it could be good. And we're going to talk a bit about that. St. Cuthbert, exactly, orc it. I agree.
I have a question then. Then why are goblins, hobgoblins, gnolls, ogres, ogre magi still in the monster manual?
Well, I'm going to give my theory on this. I think Wizards of the Coast current explanation on this is total 100% certified grade A USDA choice bullshit. And I think it all spans the fact that and I've been playing D&D since 1977. So I think I'm qualified to talk about this, as all we are. And that is, I remember one of the big things when I was younger was people were like, orcs, though, aren't they like representative of black people? Now, I played in the Army a lot of D&D with a lot of black guys. And out of the military, I played a lot of D&D with a few black people. And I've never, in fact, even ancillary to D&D, I have never met a black person go, I'm insulted by that because I think that represents us as a race. I mean, that's a fact. Has anyone here ever ran into a black person that said, I'm insulted? No, I'm not talking about Twitter. We cannot include Twitter in this discussion because Twitter is not even reality, okay?
I think orcs, after watching Lord of the Rings, orcs are represented by evil British people.
We'll just blame the Brits.
All of those orc accents in there was the evil Brit accent. So
I think it's sad because I think, okay, first of all, I think there's a real simple solution to this. First of all, real quick, Dark Winter, thank you for coming on. I haven't seen you here before, but if you have been here, welcome to the show. He real quickly says, or Darkwire, excuse me, says, I agree, they want to make their mark, but are also clueless and incompetent. Well, the thing is with me is the problem that I have with this is that, oh, Cal, real quick, hold on, stop. Cal, you mentioned Drow priestesses. Oh, trust me, we're getting into elves in one moment. Okay, that's going to be corresponding with the orcs. Now, early on, online, I saw a lot of this. Is been going on for a few years. WotC's been slowly gearing up for this. They've slowly been kind of like getting people acclimated that and I saw it coming. So I want to show you a real quick picture here. And the picture is of the orcs, the new orcs. Okay, love them, hate them, whatever. You know what? These are the new orcs. So the reason why they're taking orcs out, I believe, is, and they've said this before, is because orcs are a racist style type of race. They
This isn't
well, they
racist?
emulate a specific race. Well, you can take a lot. Let's just say they're not Hispanic. Maybe they're from
They're
Arizona.
not. Look, the one on the far right with the
He does look like
bandito
Juan Valdez, doesn't he?
mustache.
But Juan Valdez, but hold
Yeah,
on.
you know.
Juan Valdez is from Colombia. He's a coffee grower. He's not Mexican. But let's talk about real quick. Let's bring elves into this real quick. So if orcs in the classic D&D orc standpoint is racist, then how come in this image,
Right.
which is the elves, we have an obvious Asian elf right here, green. We have, I don't know, a white elf, and don't tell me this is not AI, because I know no elf that has their elbows bent backwards, but that's Watsy for you.
Whoa! Making these AI accusations.
Yeah, I'm right.
You're fucking right.
So,
Shit.
and then we have a black elf and a classic drow, which don't ask me why a drow elf would be among other elves holding a child that looks like she's scared as hell, which I would be too if I was being held close by a drow, but that's just me. So I guess what's the reason really for this, does everybody think?
Here, and I actually touched on this in a video earlier today, and I was asking whether 2024 D&D is supposed to be vanilla or paste, and if it is vanilla, I'm probably insulting vanilla because vanilla actually has flavor. But
Oh, hello. We have a special guest real quick on the screen.
Oh my God! Oh, look at this!
Yeah, I got photo bomb.
Princess O.
Are you a princess?
Her tummy is full of beef stew, and she's very happy. And she just had chunky monkey.
I would be happy too if I had beef stew.
I had my chunky monkey.
Yeah.
Oh, that's a problem.
All right.
So, guys, I'm going to check out here to go get her settled in bed, and then I'll be back.
Adios. Good night.
All right.
Scott Mulder says, in the early editions, the orcs are described in such a way that would neither give you the impression that they're anything but monsters. I agree 100% from that. I actually, before this show, read the AD&D monster manual and looked up orcs, and I see nothing. Right. And I'm not trying to defend it by making up my own reality. Could anyone pull that monster manual out, please, and show me where it is something racially obtrusive to African Americans? I would really like somebody in the chat to pull that out if they could, because I can't see it.
I can find nothing, but here's the thing with 2024. Now, folks, I'm going to preface this with saying I don't own any of the goddamn books. I have no intention of buying 2024. If they mysteriously appear on my doorstep, it means somebody didn't want their copies. But I've read a lot about it on EN World and on the forums and watched and listened to what Wachi has said. And races no longer exist. They're I don't know.
They call them, I believe their new term is species.
Species, okay. But here's the thing. If I'm a dwarf, an elf, a gnome, or an orc, it makes no gameplay difference anymore. They're all the same. This is all unflavored sprinkles for whatever ice cream they're giving you, because there's no game effects now for playing a dwarf. You can be a dwarf that is, I don't know, musically inclined like an elf or whatever. You pick and choose what your special abilities are going to be. They aren't based upon your heredity, not based upon your species or your race. It's based upon what you pick. And that tells me they are so worried about offending anybody that they offend everybody who gives a crap about it.
And I'm not trying to hate on Twitter, but let's just face it. Twitter has been a real cesspool for this subject. and it's been a real driver for Wizards of the Coast, because what they're doing is they see a tweet, and if more than 10 people retweet it or more than 10 people like it, they're like, oh shit, oh my God, freaking public opinion is shifting. And they react to it. And they react in these knee-jerk reactions. Rory, welcome to the channel. Rory says, talking a lot of sense. Imagine Irish people become offended by leprechauns and banshees. Black people don't care. And see, there's the exact point I'm talking about. I can go through the monster manual, and what's in the monster manual? What did Gary Gygax? I talked to Tim Kask about this. Tim Kask even said, a lot of the monsters are from history. Leprechauns being one of them. Banshees being one of them. It doesn't mean just because it comes from Ireland. And Rory, I know what you're talking about. I'm not saying you believe this, but just because leprechauns are Irish or from Irish lore, it doesn't mean they represent Irish people or the race of Irish men and women. And that's the problem that we're having here. Is part of the problem of Wizards of the Coast is they got a bunch of fucking morons in charge. And what they're doing is they're going, how can we fix D&D? Well, what they did to fix it was, first of all, they totally fucked up the 50th anniversary release. 100%.
Oh, they didn't celebrate it at all.
I remember the infamous question I had with Tim Kask. I was on Tim Kask's back porch. Me and Jim Wampler were there. And I asked Tim, it was right after the 50th. It was the summer after the 50th. And I said, Tim, were you contacted by WotC at all about an interview or anything? He laughed and said, fuck no. You know, they didn't even bother reaching out to the men and women who were part of the game. You know, and what did they release in time for the 50th? What was it, the Player's Handbook they managed to get out before the 50th?
Player's Handbook and the DMG were before the end of
but before the 50th.
No, nothing came out before the actual.
They got the PHB out before the 50th.
No, PHP came out in the
was it?
spring.
Okay.
I think that's
so the 50th anniversary of D&D rolled. So the 50th anniversary of Dungeons and Dragons came up on them, and they had ample idea this was coming. And instead of coming out with a brand new 6.0, something new and fresh, they put out 5.5. Now, I went through 5.5 PHP. All they did with that is they did tweaks and little modifications. There's nothing really new and fresh in that manual. I don't see it. Maybe someone in the chat has a differing opinion, but I'm looking at. I looked through the 5th edition. Then I had a chance to go through the DMG, the PDF of it. Same damn thing. It was just modifications and tweaks and nothing really new. I mean,
well, now remember, and
real quick,
and this is
Jerry. Jerry. Let's all talk about Star Frontiers real quick. Now that Tom's gone.
Oh,
God, you're evil.
Bad. Remember, D&D 2024 is 5e. However, and it's backwards compatible. However, you can't mix the books between 2014 and 2024 at the same table, because if you do, your game will implode and your players will die, and you will go to hell. But it's compatible, but you'll go to hell. You can't do it. They told you that. And they've said,
okay, Eric,
you
hold on,
could
Eric,
have
Tom's back. We
characters.
can't talk about Star Frontiers anymore. We got to get back to the subject.
I'll go back to Wacky smashing. But you could, in theory, use your 2014 characters in a 2024 game. But you wouldn't want to, because, you'd want to play the 2024 version of your character. So they screw themselves. And this is the funny part, in my opinion. They knew that every time you do a new edition, you lose all these sales ahead of time, right? At the tail end of the old edition, sales just bottom out.
This is the whole thing, Eric.
Waiting.
That could have been the exact opposite with it being the 50th. If they would have planned and coordinated this right, this could have done in a way that, I mean, the 50th anniversary edition of the new D&D, 6.0, that would have been a blow your brains market explosion for them. Put the 50th edition D. 50th,
no.
year D&D seal on the manual and milk that teat for everything that cow's worth. Sorry, my wife grew up raising cattle.
Okay, well, see, here's the thing. They didn't want to lose sales, so they couldn't call it a new edition. All right? But because it's not a new edition, nobody is psyched about it. And everybody's like, why do I need to move on to 2024? Which literally turns the game more vanilla, or less flavorful, more bland, more like paste or glue. Why would I want to? Why would I want to change? So, and by the way, their stretch is, it's the best-selling version of D&D ever. We've sold more units, not more books, more units. And oh, he's got a note here. Those more units, by the way, are for virtual tabletops and D&D Beyond, which was buy one get one. You buy the book, you get the D&D Beyond version because you want the bundle.
Real quick before you go on, this relates to sales. I reached out to 10 game shops that I deal with. 10.
Ooh.
Picked a round number. That way we could have a percentage kind of database here. And this is the official vlog of many things D&D 5.5 sales record. And I asked each one a very simple question. Actually, I asked 2 questions. What is your opinion, positive or negative, of D&D 5.5, positive or negative? And would you consider D&D 5.5 a good seller, a bad seller, or a mediocre seller? 9 out of 10 called it garbage, trash. I'm writing down the words. Garbage, trash, worthless, not a really 5.5, just a rehash of 5.0. And sales. Every single shop said absolutely abysmal sales. Every single shop, 100%.
So you're telling me that WotC is comparing apples to oranges by mixing, most likely. We're not accusing WotC of doing anything untoward. We're just saying where there's smoke that smells like burning shit, somebody's probably burning cow poop. And it's not Irish turf either, and I've smelled that. The numbers. I did statistics for the NYPD for a couple of years, and the first thing I learned is numbers don't lie, but how you package them and present them can tell certain different stories, and can protect somebody's job if you package them the right way. If you are going to do a brag, which, by the way, the vice president of Wizards of the Coast, she made a brag. It was a really bad brag.
It was.
Okay.
Well, she brought up. She tried to enunciate that it was their biggest, and she brought up the 3.5 million new classes that were created, and there's 19 existing. And what she's not kind of enunciating out with it, and this is a question I have. Let's say D&D Beyond has 3.5 new class or new characters created. Okay, those numbers are impressive when you have 19 million users. But out of that, there's a thing that she didn't clarify. Like okay, I'm not on D&D Beyond, but if I was, I'd probably have 5 or 6 classes created by myself.
Oh, now here I'm going to ask a question to the gamers here. When you were, first get a new rule set that you're really going to play with, what's the first thing you do to learn the system? Is you roll out characters, right? You roll out characters so you can see how it looks and try to get a grasp on it because you're getting these characters in front of you. So 1 in 5, having 1 character for every 5 accounts isn't really a brag that you should be bringing up. But when you realize that each account that created characters probably created 5 on average, that means that 1 in 20 of your accounts even gives a shit about 2024. And that's very telling.
An interesting question was made. Dark Winter asked, do they have the means to create a new edition anymore? I think they do, and I think they should have, instead of putting out this 5.5. They had, see, the thing is, Dark Winter, with me, is they had an event coming up that only happens once, the 50th anniversary of a game. How many games can have a
Yep.
50th anniversary that's still rapidly played, followed online, thousands of groups on social media, talked about every day? Not many. And instead of doing something about it, they just simply went, eh,
Well,
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is just this. They're worried about losing this rather than screw that. Let's make everybody happy because it's like what a friend of mine taught me. You know, take care of. Well, of course, this goes a little deeper than this, but it's. He used to say, take care of your employees first, your customers second, and everything else will take care of itself. But Wizards is like, nope, got to do the bottom line. Screw everybody else in the process. That's my take on it.
Because they're trying to take care of the
Mhm.
stockholders. Now,
Well, they damn sure don't
Now,
take care of their
Yep.
employees.
no. Well, here's something to remember. They spread the books out, the core 3 books, over 3 different quarters into 2 different
Yeah.
calendar years. You could be damn well sure they did that for creative bookkeeping. Maybe not. Yeah, I like that quote, creative bookkeeping, but because they want to spread that out and make all these quarters look good. They don't want one big quarter, then you have to explain why your next quarter dropped. Let's spread it out. But, and I've brought this up before, here's the biggest thing. Project Sigil, their new
Yeah.
VTT. They were all up and about last summer. It was like, oh, look, we're going to show. People are playtesting it. Now, I spoke with people that have playtested it at Page. And, they have it installed in their home computer. And they said it's impressive for running the demo. But there were issues, and there's been no updates. So tells me that what was it, the not ready for prime time players?
Well,
that was
it's
like
obvious.
what,
It's and Steve down below is a programmer, so Steve
Mhm.
could talk about this a lot more. But it's just like me and David Floor's development of Zonk. We're going to come out here probably in the next month with basically a beta. It'll be a playable edition. You're going to have issues with it, and that's the whole purposes of this.
Oh yeah.
But what they're doing is they're making a lot of forward claims because they're trying to get hype. And these hypes are all on the back end of these huge WotC flops. We have the licensing OGL scandal, the Orc thing, all of this. And, Mike Burke just said it. He said they're reissuing all the same 5e content, Forgotten Realms, Eberron, so still milking it like a new edition. They even put out Greyhawk again.
Yep. And the DMG.
Yeah,
And
it's just
like,
it's just an effort to to pad the books so that the investors are happy rather than actually caring about the players.
yeah. And
Yeah.
and earlier on, another question was asked about this is, has anyone in chat, and we have a very active chat, has anyone in here ever seen, and I'm not talking about a white person because you got 4 white guys here. Okay, so we definitely have a minority on our channel right now in video, but has anyone here ever met an African American that said, damn it, I'm offended over that D&D race in that game? I'd really love to know, because like I said, I probably have, and I'm not bragging, I probably have thousands of D&D sessions under my belt, and I've never ran into it. And I've played everything from houses to game shops to you name it.
Well, I remember it wasn't until 2020 that we got the disclaimer, and the disclaimer was because somebody was offended by Oriental Adventures. So the thing is, like any corporation, WotC is usually it's a knee-jerk reaction, but then after the knee-jerk reaction, they try to insulate. They try to, all right, well, where else can we get attacked from? Where else are we vulnerable? And this, by the way, is when you make something vanilla, and I happen to like vanilla in my ice cream. But when I'm saying vanilla is that it's plain.
Yeah,
It is.
it lacks.
In this case,
It has no character.
No, because you don't want to offend anybody. Okay, well, that's great. Well, then there's nothing that anybody really wants out of it, right? I mean, I'm not saying I'm looking to be offended. What I'm saying is, if you don't take risks, if you don't push an envelope somewhere in what you're producing,
Well,
you're not
what you
producing
also have
anything
to do is,
worthwhile.
I'm going to pick on Oriental Adventures. They got mad at Oriental Adventures because it had cliches in it. Well, my answer to that is, duh. I mean,
And
duh.
Well,
I mean, it's Oriental Adventures. Of course, it's going to have cliches in it. You know,
yeah, cliches exist for a reason.
exactly. And the thing is with all of this is, and again, we'll go off of Oriental Adventures. Is what they did was they didn't remove Oriental Adventures because 8 out of 10 players demanded it. They did it because 8 out of 1,000 players demanded it.
Mhm.
And see, and
Right.
that's what they're
You know,
doing. They're making these again knee jerk reactions and such.
when you go around and you say, "Oh, I'm offended at this word," well, that word was not offensive, 50 years ago, 100 years ago. One of the things, and this really bugs me, is Mark Twain did a essay, published it in the paper. It was it was after a black man was accused of assaulting a white woman, and after they lynched him, the white woman then said, "Yeah, yeah, no, it didn't happen." And so the, it was reported in the paper, and then the reporter said, "But he was just a N
Yeah.
word."
Right.
And so Mark Twain was offended at that, and he wrote this whole essay on just an N word is the title. Well, so it's attacking the racism of his time, and he's doing it in a very sarcastic way, using that title. But that essay is being deleted. You cannot refer to it. It's not being taught, and it's gone. And I think I think it's an important piece of literature. But because suddenly the word is passe. Look, we can't be
Okay.
adults, and realize that they used the word Negro or other words 150 years ago, and we got to get
Well,
rid of all this stuff.
I'm getting ready to use a word that's going to offend people, possibly. So if you're easily offended, and I'm not joking, you might want to mute your mic. Okay, now, when I was in
Uh-oh.
ninth grade, one of the common things we would say to another kid who was acting dumb is, "Oh, stop it, retard." And you know what? We said it
Oh
in
yeah.
front of teachers, the principal, and the worst we ever got was, "Be nice to another student." Now, my wife's a teacher. Let a seventh or ninth grader call a fellow student retard today. Now, what's the difference? The difference is as society grows, it changes. Same thing. What was
Right.
commonplace in 1975 is offensive in a lot of ways to 2025. That's not saying 1975 was a racist, negative, bad thing, although there was negative, bad things in 1975. But you can't
Right.
take a game like D&D and just arbitrarily reach in and go, "Oh, because orcs in the original D&D, they have pig noses and this and that, so it definitely had to represent black people." Who's being the racist here, first of all? That's
Mhm.
my question. Because I don't look at black people like that. So the first person who came up with
Well,
that analogy is a racist SOB.
all right.
Well, yeah.
Wouldn't it make more
Go
sense?
ahead.
And Eric, forgive me for saying this. Wouldn't it make more sense to say that the pig face orcs actually represented cops? Maybe.
Well, because when I was growing
Yeah,
up, what were
probably.
police called? They were called pigs. No offense, Eric.
Right. No, dude, I've been called a pig and worse. Um, even my girlfriend at the time, her grandmother would call me Gordo Policia, the fat cop. So listen, I know what it's like to be appreciated. But the reality is that it's rarely in today's times. It's not the perceived people or segment that should be offended that takes offense. It is, dare I say it, the white
Yeah.
savior who believes that they know better for everybody else. It's going to come in and, well, they're not going to stand up for themselves, so I'll stand up for them. Well, you know what? I mean that is elitism to the worst.
Well, yeah. There's a lot of
I
elitist
actually got in an argument
in
a couple of years ago with my daughter, who at the time was about 15, 16 years old. Steve knows Sarah.
Honestly,
Steve knows my daughters really well. And the thing is, Sarah is the typical, she's 18 now, going on 19, but she's the typical of that age idea, mindset, thought process. And, we got in this debate back and forth about what's acceptable today. Why are certain words offensive? Why are you taking offense to certain words? And I think it's more that we've shifted as a society. And, let's face it, the average age on this screen right now is what, 55 to 57 years old? I think Steve's the baby here. We're 357. Steve, you're at
yeah.
52, 53?
Two going on 53.
Okay, so Steve's the baby right here.
Uh, you
That's
screw
right.
the average
Thanks,
up,
Steve.
man.
You ruined it.
I've
Um,
been for 8 years.
but the thing is, what I think what we have to realize, and I think we do, but a lot of the younger generation does not, is just because you think it's offensive does not make it offensive. And I think that's the problem with WotC. They have a group of individuals in charge who don't understand the game. They don't. I'd be willing to bet you could take the vice president of D&D operations, and probably the next five in line in command, throw them in a room on camera, give the books to them, and say, "Okay, roll up a character real quick and play your D&D 5.5 or even 5.0. Play it now." And they'd be all
Well,
big, wide eyes
here,
looking at each other, like, "Don't you know how to open the damn books?"
uh, your D&D brand vice president, the vice president of D&D, she got the position, I think, last February or March. I looked her up on LinkedIn because, it's what I do. And before she had this position, she was like chief of staff at WotC or something like that. And then she was a vice president in Magic the Gathering, and all her other positions were on the Magic the Gathering side. So that's great. Magic the Gathering and D&D have one thing in common. In the past, they both used to have great art.
Thanks, Laz.
Now, yeah. But I mean, they're not the same. There's some overlap in the player base, but if you play Magic or you play D&D, it's a totally different thing. So again, that's why when she's bragging about certain numbers, she doesn't understand the numbers she's bragging
she's
about.
purposely skewing it to not say what she knows.
It could be a little bit of that too. But if you have a player base of 18,000 and 3,000 characters being created, and you think that's a stretch to brag about, yeah, no,
that
no,
the people
it
that
ain't,
are
lady.
utilizing it can each make multiple characters. She didn't say
Right.
unique
It makes it
members.
even less of a brag.
What's that, Tom?
Or he asked me if I like pints.
Oh, come on! You gotta have a real English pub pint glass.
Well, my parents bought this in Mildenhall, England.
It qualifies. But that's the thing here, though. What she did is she basically, I believe, I don't think it's the fact that she doesn't know the numbers, Eric. I think what she purposely did is she tried to, sugarcoat it. Oh, we got 3 million.
Well, I think those numbers are impressive to her, but she doesn't understand that most gamers create more than one character. When it's her, and folks, something else to remember: D&D Beyond, when 2024 and the Player's Handbook first released, they changed all the D&D Beyond to 2024, and people freaked out because now everything was screwed up, and they had to do like a dual boot. Like, well, you can play either 2024 or 2014. We'll make that accommodation. You don't have to make your own home campaign for everything, because they wanted to push people into the new 2024, and there was pushback. People don't talk about it a lot, but that pushback is because players want to play what they know. Okay, and 2024 isn't a big enough move to make them want to change what they know.
Yeah, and I think, before we go on to the next subject, I think a way to end this is real simple, and that is, remember one thing about D&D, And this is why I don't think D&D will ever die. Even though there's a lot of vloggers going, D&D's dead, it's going to be gone forever, there's no new edition. Even if D&D shut down today,
Might
yeah.
be dead.
But I'm talking
What
about
might be
if Wizard of the Coast announced we're nixing the project, we're shelving it. 5.5 was it, ladies and gentlemen. We're not putting out another product. Me as a D&D gamer, I would go, so what?
Yeah. And
Look at my shelf behind me. I can play any version of D&D that I want for as long as I want because I have a brain also, and I can create adventures and I can make my own maps. So guess what? You're not hurting my feelings. And that's the whole thing about what made D&D
Nope.
last 50 years is the uniqueness of it. Exactly. Play Blades and Arcana. Play Pathfinder, MCC, DCC,
Yeah,
Traveler.
Cheers.
Tunnels and Trolls. I got
Exactly.
somewhere on that virtual shelf behind me. There's a lot of stuff, and
Yeah.
that Arduin. It's not even. Don't play the Star Frontiers one, although it's actually a great parody. I had to have it up on the shelf because I think it looks good.
But that's the
But-
whole point. Is that keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that's what makes D&D special. Is that I don't like 5.5. I really don't care much for 5.0. So what do I play? I play 1E or I play Back Me. So guess
Yeah.
what? I can do that because WotC will never take that away from me. And I can create also my own. I have my own world I created. I think most D&D players who DM and stuff have that. So
what you're
But I
saying
guess
is that you're a brown coat, and they can't take the sky from you.
absolutely, and I'm proud of it too because the thing is real quick, Rory asks you, Tom, what style of tea do you prefer? I love Assam. I also love Earl Grey. The bergamot helps the liver.
I started drinking Earl Grey because of a starship captain portrayed on TV, and I like Earl Grey. But I'll pretty much drink almost any herbal tea, any black tea, green tea. I like green tea because 30% less stomach cancer if you drink it every day. So
Yeah, Mr. Gunn, how you doing? Hell yes, Rory. Finally found somebody who appreciates the gem of Beckme that it is. Rory,
BX.
Rory is the man of the chat for tonight. Let me just leave this up for the remaining of the old thing. Sorry for everybody. But kind of back onto a different subject I think we need to talk about tonight, and we mentioned in our show, and that is Dave Arneson. And I've actually mentioned this online in several AD&D groups. I've corrected people in AD&D groups. I've gotten in trouble quite a bit in AD&D groups when people go, Gary Gygax is the creator of Dungeons and Dragons, and I say bullshit. And people are like, what do you mean? I say, if you really want to really look at the core of it, I think Dave Arneson is more the creator of D&D because it was Blackmore that kind of gave, for a really bad analogy here, that kind of got Gary Gygax as a little bit of a stiffy to get his mind going to help create D&D, and it was Arneson and Gygax. And I think I think that's forgotten by many.
Gygax is more the editor, and he's certainly put more. He certainly added more wrinkles to it and added a lot to it. But yeah,
His creativity, no doubt, was a driving force behind it. Even Tim Kask, I believe. And I'm not trying to talk for Tim by chance in this video, but when you look at it, though, I think that just leaving Arneson out is common, is disrespectful. And I think putting Gygax at the head. Well, Gygax was the front man. He was the every good brand has to have a face. And Gygax was that really heavy forward, guy in the front. And I just think that it's sad that what's going on right now with the trend, and that is, people go, they don't even mention Arneson hardly anymore.
Well, listen, to be honest with you, the 5e players don't even mention Gary Gygax, all right? They don't understand.
Well, yeah, they don't know who he is.
They don't know who he is or what. My understanding from what I've seen is that Gary, like was being said by Tom, Gary he did more than editing. the idea man was Arneson. He had the ideas. He had no organizational skills. He had no ability to present anything. Not just talking to Tim, but to Steve Marsh. I've heard the story of when the Blackmore document was finally handed in. It was literally a basket of papers dropped on a desk and said, "Here." And Steve and Tim had to turn that mess into a usable doc.
Yes.
So there's a lot of that in D&D from Arneson. And also with Arneson, a lot of what he did, again, my understanding, is that he didn't always put everything down on paper when he was working stuff out, because when you're running the game, you know all the rules. It's like when you run an adventure, you know it all. So you don't worry about the details, but when you're publishing it, you need the details. And Gary understood that from his prior releases that he'd worked on, that you have to kind of, if you've ever read the original White Box or Wood Grain Box, whatever, listen, I look at it, and I'm a D&D player for the last 40 plus years, and I look at it and I go, I couldn't run this as is out of the box. How would you? But believe it or not, if Arneson had presented it, and if you've ever read any of his other stuff, I think First Fantasy.
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was heavily edited. Even that one, I went, okay, well, I guess Dave knows what's missing because I don't.
But I guess my whole point is, well, Bad Mike, thanks for tuning in. Bad Mike says Arneson was one part of an equation that led to D&D. Dave had no interest in doing anything with his game, and his career after leaving TSR is one of the many promises and no follow up. I agree with that, but the problem that I have is when you look at the legacy of D&D and you talk about the creators of Dungeons and Dragons. I believe that using the name Arneson along with Gygax or Gygax with Arneson, I think is a critical thing to do if you want to be accurate.
Yes.
Because if it wasn't for Arneson's Blackmore, Gary Gygax would never create a D&D. He would never, along with Arneson, taken that base, that foundation. D&D wouldn't be here today. I don't believe it. Because even the story that I was told was that, Gygax was invited over, played Blackmore, and it blew his mind. And that started the wheels. And that's how they kind of got together. And yeah, we know the cluster, fuck of TSR early days and the fighting and the infighting and the mismanagement. That's all history, and it's been written about, I think, by a few times. Real quick, Bad Mike says Arneson's Blackmore games were supposed to be amazing, but he never interested in making this experience something other than gamers would be able to replicate. Yeah, I mean, the thing is it's very well. I never met Dave Arneson. First of all, I never met Dave Arneson. I met Gygax in the early '80s. So,
I think Arneson was the classic wargamer. That he had this thing and he would do it like at a convention or at his house, and people enjoyed it. And that's what wargamers do. They bring out their figures, they lay out the table, they do the thing. And I think he came from that mold. But I would dispute that we would have never got D&D without Arneson blowing Gary's mind, because I think there was a trend in wargaming where you had mass battles, where you had hundreds of figures representing thousands upon thousands of men, and then somebody said, let's try a skirmish level.
But that was Gary Gygax's own words that said that. Gary Gygax said that.
You got down the skirmish level, and I think sooner or later somebody would have said, well, let's just run a squad. And I think sooner or later somebody would have had an idea, let's just have you run one man. And so in an alternate history, if you're doing a Harry Turtledove type of alternate history, I think you could have got something like Dungeons and Dragons. It certainly wouldn't have had Gary's thumbprint on it, and which was super important. But I think you could have gotten something that would have been one player playing one character.
Well, Bad Mike says, if you say people have no idea who Arneson is, I'd counter with many modern gamers no idea who the founding fathers are, including Gary. And I was getting ready to comment on this, but then Bad Mike followed up with something that I was going to make a point of. We grew up with these guys, but the new generation separates us and most younger gamers, and that's true. Newer gamers have their own, for lack of a better word, their own idols, their own RPG people that they look up to. But I'm talking about in general when I see people talk about the founder of D&D, Gary Gygax, the father of D&D. I would agree that he is, and again, I don't expect people to agree with me on this channel. I mean, I'm glad to have people, disseminate, not agree with me, but I just really think that, I think based on what Gary Gygax said in a speech that he did, and I may misremember it because I was just a kid, but in 1979 at Gen Con, I think it was 79 or 80, he did a small little speak and thanked Arneson, and said if it wasn't for Arneson, D&D would not be here. And again, I might have the words mixed up. It was many an eon ago.
I'm sure I'm listening, and that would make sense. That's before he started becoming bitter about the whole. But we never got to see the inner workings. It's not like today with the internet, where the moment there's a change at WotC, we all know about it. We didn't know that Gary left until pretty much. Why is he no longer in Dragon Magazine? What's going on? What happened with that? Mm-hmm. But Gary did something that was very important that Arneson would never have done, and they had different personalities. Gary was very comfortable making himself the face of D&D and TSR. Dave did not have that in him, and that's fine. So when people say, would D&D exist without Dave? Probably not. But would it exist without Gary? Definitely not. It
definitely not
gone anywhere.
Agreed.
Because you needed that business sense, good or bad, and you needed that drive, and you needed the person that's going to put himself out there, get himself on 60 Minutes during the Satanic Panic, and move through it. And God bless him for it. Does it make him a better man than Dave? No. Does it make him? Dave is like that cornerstone brick that keeps the building. Without that brick, that building would not stand.
Yeah.
Dave was needed for that, but without Gary, that building would never have been built. Is that a good way to put it?
Yeah, I agree, and that's been my whole point, though. And every time I bring it up like that, I usually get a whole bunch, and they're not younger gamers who do it. It's older gamers going, the majority of them basically tell me, you got it all wrong. Gary created it. Steve, you got something you want to say?
Fire.
Yeah. Going back to something you guys mentioned earlier about like how D&D was created. I think you remember me mentioning that me and a whole bunch of high school friends ended up coming up with our own pencil and paper RPG, and that what you guys are talking about with D&D is kind of what it was with us. We're just talking and chatting, and hey, we should probably do this different, or what would it look like if we did this different? We just sat down and hashed the whole thing out. And the funny thing was, it's I don't remember who it was you mentioned that would do a bunch of stuff, but he wouldn't write everything down.
Dave, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Well, that was kind of us, but it was funny because you got to a point where when we were gaming, we would try to bring somebody new in, and you spent 5 or 6 games just trying to explain everything to them, because we had no book. It was all up here. I mean, the only thing we had was our notebooks, which had our characters, our stats, all our details and everything. And, that it was the kind of game that if you lost that, it was the same thing as somebody just dropped a nuke on Los Angeles or something. It was just weeping and gnashing of teeth. And so, my book was kind of thin because we had some guys that went for quantity. So they had like low level characters and lots of them. Me, I'm over here and it's like this, and I got all these, a handful of OP characters, and I'm running them all over the map, having a ball with them. And the whole thing was not written down. We literally had everything memorized, so I totally relate to that.
Yeah, it's creativity.
And you had fun.
Oh, we had a blast. Absolute blast. Yeah.
And see, there's
I
the
know Arneson did
cornerstone.
the same.
Yeah, that's the whole cornerstone of D&D in general. And whether we go to talk about, no matter what subject we talk about D&D, it boils down to be, to me, as a gamer, is when I look at what made D&D make it to 50 years and what made the game so special, it was that ability to sit down at a table with your friends
Mm-hmm.
and just become literally anything that you wanted. And we're in a day and age now where that's being slowly whittled away, and a new breed of gamer are being brought up, and they're being told, no, you can't, say orcs are bad, or you can't say drow, elves are evil, an evil race, and I think that's really given modern gaming
Well,
an
you got put
unfair.
in Facebook jail for saying goblins are the worst.
Yeah, literally, they banned me for like, I think it was, they got me for either 7 or 30 days. I forget what it was.
It was
Facebook.
30 days. You couldn't
Yeah,
comment.
yeah, they freaking hit me hard because I said goblins were evil, innately evil, and vile little critters or something. It was something on a D&D post talking about freaking goblins. You know?
Because they are.
Well, yeah, they are.
Oh, we just got demonetized.
No, Tom, you got demonetized in the first 5 minutes of this show.
I have a question. I'd like to get. I just want to float a question and,
Sure.
and get you guys' reaction to it. In light of the crappy handling of the 50th anniversary and the whole taking a steaming dump on the founders of D&D, do you think that the shenanigans of the past 3 years involving the son of one of the founders, Ernie Jr., that because that CEO that thought I'll bring him on, and WotC will never sue me because I have the son of Gary with me. Do you think any of that played into the desire of WotC to just divorce themselves from their origins? You see what I'm trying to ask? Where I'm trying to go?
I firmly believe that Wizards of the Coast's current stance on licensing older content has been definitively influenced by the events, and I'll just say it because it's history, of TSR, new TSR 3.0, 4.0, whatever you want to call it, under Justin Lanasa. I got no problem saying that. I believe that because I believe this, because when you look at the lawsuits that were involved, this cost Wizards of the Coast $1 million. And I don't care how big of a freaking company you are. If you got to spend $1 million on a lawsuit, that kind of pisses you off a little bit. And so
Did it really cost them $1 million? Because he's been selling a lot of properties lately.
no, I'm talking about it costs WotC $1 million to prosecute and defend. And the thing is I think when you look at Ernie, my opinion on your question, Tom, is I think what is sad about this is that as a gamer, what bothers me is about Ernie is not the fact of what he associated himself with. It's the fact that he still continues, like, picture that he posted not 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago, him, Voldemort, and Jeff Leeson arm in arm, best gamer buds forever. And I look at something like that, and basically I look at it and I just go, I think the answer to your question is right there, Tom. I think that, you can't just all shucks, guys, I welcome everybody at my table.
Right.
Type thing. When I'll put it to you this way. If you have a photograph of me from 3 weeks ago, okay, at a neo-Nazi rally with my arm up high, I'm just not going to be able to go, well, all shucks, guy, I was getting ready to play D&D with these guys. I just want to go ahead and make everybody feel welcome at my table. I mean, seriously. And I think it's where there was no line drawn. I think that's where some people just I got no respect for the guy. And, I know he's in a hospital. I really wish him good health. I don't wish ill health on him. But you know what? And he's got his own shtick with his gaming in his house that he seems to do well on. I wish him all the luck. But I'll be honest with you. I just, as a convention organizer, won't have my conventions. And I just have nothing for the guy other than I wish him well. Hope he gets well,
Yeah.
But I don't respect his decisions as far as who he has decided to ally himself with. Because, like my dad used to say, lay down with dogs, you're going to wake up with fleas.
Well, the thing that I least respect about Ernie, um, connected to the whole new TSR thing, is that he allowed himself to be videotaped by Voldemort, uh, telling stories about his brother. And these are just stories you just don't voice, but it was just this.
Well, it was.
It was
Let's face it. It was to me that he was saying these things, and I challenge. I mean, I go into it in depth in my book. I have sections of Discord chat in my book that I'm releasing in April, and some of those are Discord chats with Ernie and what Ernie has said about his brother. And again, this book, just for public knowledge right now, has been looked at by an attorney and 100% content approved. If it's true and you can document it,
Water and I'm sorry. I have a different relationship with my brother,
real
and
quick, Rory, I'll be in there.
yeah,
Um, yeah, the thing is this: I think that we as gamers have a unique thing. A lot of us in chat and the four of us here, because we had the pleasure of playing this game when it was first coming out. We know what it was like in the early days, and I know a lot of people, younger people, go, "Pfft," but you're missing out because it's like Beck Me. And I know you're BX, Tom, and we joke back and forth, but let's just face it. There's a joy in sitting at the table and playing some classic D&D the way it's supposed to be played, at least in my opinion.
yeah.
I could sit in a back knee game and it wouldn't phase me in the least.
Well, when you ask also modern gaming or modern gaming stores too, it's just like me and my wife went to one up in Grand Ledge, Michigan, and the first thing we walked in, there was a group of like 6 or 7, looked like 13, 14-year-olds, and I walked up because I was curious. It was the owner's daughter was being a DM, and what did they all have in front of them? They had 1E manuals.
Nice.
They were playing A, D, and D
Nice.
Orange Spine, and I was just like, "Oh yeah,
That's my baby. My baby. That's what I came in on.
That's what I love AD and D."
Yep.
And the thing is you look at that and you just look at something like that, and if you talk to game shops, I think a lot of game shops will tell you that AD&D is still very, very popular, and so is second edition in game shops among even younger players.
Yeah, because they did it right.
Yeah.
I when I was getting divorced, I brought my daughters. We were having visitation, and so we went to a place called Battlegrounds in Saugus, and it's Warhammer and Magic the Gathering.
Battlegrounds.
Yeah, it's called Battlegrounds. And
In Connecticut?
No, in Saugus, Mass.
Oh, because Battlegrounds in Maine or in Connecticut is where I delivered Han Solo.
Oh, well, it could be a chain, maybe, I don't know. But I went in there and we played basic Keep on the Borderlands, and we were having fun. And as we were wrapping up, this 20-something-year-old came over and was like, "Man, you're playing with Thaco?" I mean, he was like, "I got to see this. This is really," he was really interested, and and it was just that. Look, it's simple. I can introduce it to young kids. It's very simple. I know how to run it without even thinking, and so we played it. We had fun. And other people were interested in what we were doing because they'd never seen anything like it before. So it's not so much that these older editions are dead. It's just that people haven't seen them. They don't know what it's all about. And, WotC certainly doesn't want anybody to find out what the past is all about because they're trying to whitewash it.
Mm-hmm. I agree. And again, I think that one of the biggest problems here is you have a group of people in command over Wizards of the Coast D&D part that really don't understand the game, and more so, even more importantly, I think that they don't understand the players.
Well, TSR Incorporated floundered when you had somebody who was not a game player, Lorraine Williams, became in charge of the company. And she was like, "We're going in this direction." And she took the company in a certain direction, and kind of ran it into the ground to the point where, thank God, Wizards of the Coast offered to buy the company because they were thinking like, oh, we're going to get the D&D brand. This will be good. And as far as I know, and maybe Eric might know better, we still don't know what level of debt WotC ended up buying, and we still don't know what they ended up paying.
Yeah, TSR was not a publicly traded company, so
It wasn't. I heard from a source it was in the range of like 300 million. It was a lot of debt.
It was a huge amount.
Yeah,
I'm not quite sure the exact numbers.
Yeah, I'm the person I'm hearing from. I don't know how they would know, but if someone would know, I would think they might have insight a little bit, but I'm not sure. But I heard the dollar amount I was told was right around 300 million.
Yeah, I would not be surprised. They were getting hit with a lot of returns.
Yep.
And Dragon Dice were literally Dragon Dice were like the ET Nintendo video game. They were buried.
Atari video game.
Sorry, yeah, the ET game. It was that bad. But Lorraine was there for one reason and one reason only, and that was to make money off her Buck Rogers IP, which her family owned, and by TSR publishing Buck Rogers, she got the double dip. Mm-hmm. She got to get paid as a TSR exec, and she got paid because her trust was making money. So
and she, as the TSR exec, negotiated a deal with her as the IP owner exec that they would get paid on everything printed, not on things sold.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So
because they had the return issue because they had bad contracts. They had a really horrible return contract.
So they pushed Buck Rogers, and when you go and look, there were so many Buck Rogers supplements because every time something was printed, she got paid, regardless if it sat on a warehouse shelf and didn't sell it or not. Yep. So it was a very shady deal that she cut with herself.
Yep.
And drained the company of money.
Yep. And Bad Mike, I think, makes a really fitting end to this saga of the vlog of many things tonight. I know, Eric, you got your tavern in the Discord. Is Bad Mike says if you can give Lorraine credit for anything, she kept the brand going long enough for WotC to buy it.
She killed our frontiers. Burn her. She's a witch.
We get it. But the thing is at the bottom of all this is what has been nice about this is there was enough of a breath taken because of her stupidity and her greed that WotC could have grabbed it. And I think at the end of the day, the changes that are being made by WotC as a gamer, I don't like, but it is liked by many. And they're making now some flubs with this new edition. And I think this is going to be one that stings them pretty bad. And I'm going to be really interested to see how they're going to step back from this, take a deep breath, and come back, because they're going to have to come back with something. And I don't see, the only thing I think that's really going to do much for them, they're going to either have to come out with some type of really different, campaign setting. Where's the modules at? Let's get modules back on, online flying.
Don, all the money, all the investment is in Project Sigil.
Yep. And
to leave this on a final note, folks, remember Gleemax, remember 4E, remember a game designed for a VTT that never happened.
Yep. Exactly.
Sound familiar?
Yep.
Where we're at.
All right, guys. Well, everybody in chat, thank you for tuning in tonight. It's been great. Everybody's been real active in chat. We appreciate it. To the couple of new people that came in tonight, thank you very much. Tom, Steve, Eric, thank you very much for coming on tonight. Again, everybody, next Thursday, we'll be back with another edition of Vlog of Many Things. The following Thursdays, we're going to be at Total Con. At least three of us.
I'll listen. I've got.
I'm up for
it. I've got a tripod coming. I got some.
Shall we commit to a Thursday edition of the Vlog of Many Things?
Look at that. Two microphones that will work.
I've got almost the same damn thing. I wonder if I could connect to one of your.
I don't know. So I think that there will be some live streams from TotalCon, folks.
All right. So the Vlogomany things might be happening over TotalCon. We'll have to see what happens.
All right.
All right. So everybody, thanks for tuning in. Cal, Dave, Rory, No Consequence, Mr. Gunn, Bad Mike 3, and everybody